Hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's been a minute, but here I am. All right, let me let you in on a little secret. You want to know a great way to make an audience? What you do is you make a couple of videos ripping off popular YouTubers, and then one of them just gets 600,000 views randomly 3 years after you make it, and your channel subscribers can go from 100 to 3,700. And then you come on and you say, hey everyone, I see I have an audience now. I'm going to start making videos on the regular. And then you just go silent for 2 years. Now that's how you build an audience. And I've been on YouTube since 2006, so I think I know what I'm talking about. So what have I been doing for 2 years? Did I get a job? Did I develop some sort of chronic illness? Did I gorge on food until I looked like Brendan Fraser in The Whale? Well, actually no, none of those things. The answer is that I've been working on a documentary since June of 2021, and I'm just now finishing it. The doc is called An Elegant Weapon, the story of 3 in the afternoon and 6 in the morning. It's a little wordy, but don't worry, I've got plenty of ways to abbreviate it. Originally, my concept was just to make a little 20 to 30 minute retrospective video on these 2 short films that I really liked from my childhood in like the early days of YouTube. The shorts were about a group of normal, regular, everyday people who get real lightsabers on their front door with no explanation, and then they just sort of have to deal with the moral consequences and implications of having this like laser sword in the real world. And they always stuck out to me for a number of reasons. One, lightsabers are cool. They just are. They always have been. 2, the filmmaking behind them was kind of low budget, but impressive. And there were plenty of like dramatic turns and twists and a lot of snappy, clever dialogue that keeps it interesting.
Dude. Chicks. Chicks? Chicks, dude.
Enough. Turn those off and drop them, or I'll peel his melon off where he stands.
Excuse me? I don't think you've got the balls. Shut up!
And 3, they just represent like an era of my life and YouTube when everything was more simple and quaint, and you didn't need a team of professionals to make a video that got millions of views. It could just be you, your friends, a camera, and some modified plastic toys. And it's worth pointing out that the second one ends with a teaser for a 3rd short called Night in the Evening. And throughout the years, I was excited for that, so I kept checking back to see if maybe one day they eventually got around to it. But alas, it's 2023 and no dice. So I just always wondered, what happened to the 3rd short? How come they only ever made just the 2? And, dig a little deeper on how those first 2 got made. So on June 10th, 2021, I reach out to Travis Bowles and Jonathan Pruitt on Twitter, @FairEnoughDude at 2:38 p.m. I'm thinking about making a retrospective of 3 in the afternoon / 6 in the morning. @JPruInc @ProducerTrav. Y'all down to be interviewed? And sure enough, both of them responded sure within 24 hours. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. So I DM'd both of them and I scheduled some interviews, and then, we figured out a way to do it over Zoom. Because, it was the middle of the pandemic. Even though they live in Texas, I couldn't really travel to shoot an interview with them in person because, people were just trying to be safe and not get COVID. Within that first interview with Travis, I quickly realized that the story that I was interested in was a lot bigger than I had anticipated. So I ended up interviewing Travis about 3 times, and then over the next few months, I ended up getting more interviews with the people that helped him make the shorts, including internet VFX pioneer / legend, Ryan Weber, who is one half of Ryan vs. Dorkman. Ryan vs. Dorkman was a series of lightsaber fights that were viral hits on YouTube back in the day. So by the end of all these interviews, I had about 20 hours worth of footage to transcribe, condense, and then meld into some sort of consumable thing for an internet audience. And I was actually pretty surprised when Travis told me that he had basically been saving every tape and hard drive that he had ever shot something and saved something on from, 20 years ago ever since. It's just been sitting in a box in his house waiting to be scanned and made into something. So initially he sent me like a handful of things he just had at easy access, and I would basically just take the interviews and cherry pick all the parts I felt relevant to the movie, and then I would put them all in a timeline in order and then sort of just trim them down little by little and throw in the little bit of clips that I had here and there. And then I basically spent like a collective 10 months procrastinating throughout 2022. I would get like a chunk of work done and then nothing would happen. Basically, the whole thing was just so ambitious and big for me to comprehend that there were often just days where I would open up my Premiere, app on my computer and have all the whole project there in front of me and be ready to start working, and then I just get 10 minutes into it and my brain just fogs up because it's trying to think of all these things at once and it's just too big for one person. However, I never lost sight and I never gave up on the project. Travis has got his own life. He's got a job full-time and he's raising a family full-time, and so he's a busy guy, and therefore I would just sort of have to be patient if I wanted to get the footage to use in my film. It's pretty much that simple. But also, life got in the way as it usually does, and we always hit our bumps and snags, but then you just get back to the thing. You get back to editing. So it was like around September of last year where I was like, okay, enough is enough. I'm just gonna sit down and I'm going to make a checklist of whatever I gotta do to make this movie and finish it. And that's what I did. And I basically spent the better part of a year finishing the movie. It was kind of an alternating schedule of like, I would edit extensively, like really hardcore, and then take like a week off to, not give myself carpal tunnel, and then get back to editing, and then another break, and so on and so forth. And then while all of that was going on, I was Zooming with Travis, and he was capturing the footage and, going through each one tape by tape to see if there was anything relevant to anything that was mentioned in the doc where that could be shown to help further tell the story. And he sent me a lot of stuff. I mean, he would send me like home videos from when he was a kid, short films that they made fresh out of high school, and even like clips of him on the local news. And then gradually the movie just sort of evolved from this like bare bones sort of timeline of talking head interviews with a few little clips thrown in here or there, and then it morphed into this gargantuan Akira blob-like thing of a movie, at least all in one person's head. But yeah, it's like a full-fledged documentary telling the story of this group of friends, and it's just way bigger and more ambitious than I had ever anticipated. So I just want to thank Travis for a multitude of things. He's been very supportive of this project every step of the way. He was its biggest champion, and he dedicated a lot of his free time to archiving and sharing these stories and this footage with me. He gave me a pretty candid and vulnerable look at the emotional journeys that he's gone through in his life. And I really respect like how willing he was to be that vulnerable with me. So we've grown to be good friends over the last 2 years, and I truly could not have made this movie without him. Like, he got the ball rolling on getting everyone else on board, and so it's weird because I feel like there's also like a bit of a parasocial relationship with the other people in the documentary because, I have all this footage of them interacting and I'm seeing all their dynamics and stuff, and you sort of get attached to it just from staring at the damn stuff so long. But I've only even interacted with most of the people I interviewed like a handful of times. It's just interesting how through going through all these hours of footage, I was able to sort of get to know them as people, even though I was in my room the whole time. I gotta say I was pretty excited every time he sent me over a new tape or capture and I could import it and go through it and cherry pick out the little golden nuggets and cute little moments that I could put into the movie. It was definitely tedious at times, but honestly, in the long run, it was worth it. It's just crazy that he had all this stuff like not only recorded in the first place, but saved on mini DV tapes in a box just in his house for years. I'm not sure whether subconsciously he knew someone would come along and be able to tell this story, or if the filmmaker in him just felt that need to preserve the media for the sake of preserving it. So that's why the beginning of the movie is credited to me and Fanboys Productions, which is a company that hasn't actually made anything since 2011. It's just crazy some of the stuff that he was able to dig up, because I assumed most of it was lost to time. I thought I would only have like the short films and maybe a few other things if I was lucky, but I really did get like a shitload of really good stuff for this. He sent me like hours and hours of behind the scenes footage, the raw footage for the short films like from in camera, and then the high res versions of the shorts themselves, which haven't been seen on YouTube before. And thanks to Travis's know-how and technical skills as a filmmaker, we were able to like upscale a lot of this footage to HD without using AI. And, you know, it actually looks pretty damn good. And the breadth of the amount of footage that there is, I feel like we were able to sort of fully illustrate that time period that the doc is about. So I also want to give a shout out to Ryan Weber, who was also super helpful in the making of this. We had a really good interview and he gave me a lot of insight and just really added a lot of legitimacy to the thing. You know, I think having him involved really elevated it to a higher place than I could have ever originally imagined it could have gone. And he sent me not just one, but 3 copies of RVD2 on DVD with all the bonus features and the making of and all that stuff. And he sent me 2 of the CDs of the soundtrack, which was super cool of him. I'm sure he was glad to, you know, get rid of some of these and not have them taking up space in his house. But yeah, I always wanted one of those DVDs as a kid, but I could never convince my parents to, you know, just drop $20 on some random lightsaber fight YouTube video DVD, which I guess is fair from, you know, an adult perspective. But as a kid, I was like devastated. So super cool of him to send that. And then he sent me a bunch of high-res footage of the making of RVD2 and all the promotional stuff. And it's like super good quality. It's like crazy how clear it is. There's honestly so much of it that he sent me that like that could be its own feature film, even though in my doc it's only like, you know, 10 minutes. Then I also interviewed a man named John Hudgens, who is a director. He made a documentary called Backyard Blockbusters, which is about the fan film community. And he's also made a few notable fan films himself, like Jedi Hunter and Sith Apprentice. And it turns out in Backyard Blockbusters, he actually covers both of the Ryan versus Dorkman fights. And he was there when they shot the second one, so he graciously gave me the interview footage and the behind-the-scenes footage that he shot when he was on location. So yeah, thanks to John for giving me the time of day and agreeing to do an interview and sending me all that, because it just helped flesh this thing out even more. And finally, I want to both thank and salute the fine folks at the Internet Archive, because I, you know, used the Wayback Machine and I was able to use the captures from it, you know, as well as some grueling Photoshop and After Effects work to showcase some period accurate shots of the web pages and the sites that I discuss in the documentary. Just from a research perspective, they were immensely helpful in representing the look of the internet back then. So if you are ever on archive.org and you get that little pop-up asking for you to donate money so they can keep it going, just throw them a few bucks. I mean, I did. I think everyone should, because the Internet Archive is a super helpful and very important public service and website. So just throw them a few bucks, you know? They deserve it. So yeah, this documentary has been a long time coming, you know? I definitely gained a lot of skills as a filmmaker and as an editor. I mean, like basically every single editing trick I've ever learned, I used while making this. And I've been editing since I was like 10 or 11 years old on Windows Movie Maker. So I should also point out that while I was editing over the 2 years, I was watching a lot of documentaries and taking inspiration from, you know, the different editing styles, but also just the, you know, craft and the genre of documentary itself, and how, you know, the medium of it allows filmmakers to tell these really interesting and unique stories that, because of the nature of how, you know, truth is stranger than fiction, you often get some incredibly eye-opening and surreal experiences in documentaries. You know, we all had a lot of free time during the pandemic to watch whatever we wanted, so for me, I started just watching a bunch of documentaries I had saved on my watch list. I definitely fell in love with the craft of making documentaries, and it has really made me want to pursue doing more projects like this in the future. Now, as far as making a movie by yourself for no money for 2 years, yeah, no, I don't advise doing it all by yourself. That's for sure. But I did it. I made a movie. We made a movie, really. But, you know, like I said, I couldn't have done it without the help of Travis, Ryan, and everyone else involved in the project. I may have jumped the gun by posting that teaser trailer back in October, but I had just finished editing the rough cut and I was excited, and naively assumed that I would have the movie out in a few months as opposed to almost a year later. So. But by now you've seen the final trailer, and you only have to wait one more week to finally see the full 2.5-hour documentary. Yes, 2.5 hours. That's because there's a lot of ground to cover, and honestly, I don't think there's anything I put in the movie that I would have left out. So, you know, it is what it is. I mean, it's YouTube. You can hit pause. You can't complain about it, right? So as far as the future of this channel, the video you're watching right now is kind of a loose pilot for a new series I want to do called Doc Talk. And it's basically me reviewing and analyzing and discussing various documentaries that are either just discussion worthy, or I was inspired by, or I'm really passionate about. I don't want to commit to too much because we all know how I am with upload schedules. But recently I also started a new podcast with my friend Jordan Randall called A Musician and a Filmmaker, where we discuss various albums and movies. So it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify now, so go check it out if you're interested. I know we're all excited to listen to yet another podcast, but you know, whatever. And finally, let me just say that if you haven't seen the original short films, 3 in the afternoon and 6 in the morning, that this documentary covers, there's gonna be a link in the description, and there's gonna be a card after this video basically linking you to it. It's a combination of the two, upscaled to 1080p, and you know, for the first time ever in HD. So go check them out. I highly recommend them, and it'll definitely give you a lot more context when you watch the documentary as to what exactly is going on. The documentary is going to premiere right here on my channel in a week's time, so subscribe if you haven't. I'll, hopefully see some of y'all in the chat. So join us on September 23rd, 2023 for the premiere of An Elegant Weapon, the story of 3 in the afternoon and 6 in the morning. I hope those of you that are fans of the originals are excited, because I know I am. I mean, I'm mainly excited to finally get this off my plate and get a fucking job. But anyway, it's been a great journey, and I'm super excited for everyone to see all the hard work I've put in. Thanks, everyone. Stay tuned. Have a good one.